Hello and welcome back to yet another edition of the Bibbs Corner podcast. I am your host, as always, Mike Bibbins. That's at Bibbs Corner for all the sports stuff, and this is a sports episode. Trade Machine Extravaganza. I put the call out for all the Trade Machine wizards to send me their best trades for the Mavs this offseason. Tried to keep it realistic, and some people understood that, some didn't, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first of all, I decided to do my own kind of run through without doing a deep dive. So the structure of this episode is going to be I got some updates I want to give y'all in the beginning. We'll take a quick break. Then we'll come back. I'll go over the trades that I got submitted from people and with their defenses. So we'll go over how they defended that trade for both sides, why it makes sense, and then give a brief some input on my thoughts on those trade ideas. And then we'll take another break, come back, and then I'll go over my kind of basically I went through all the teams in the league, literally every single team, looked at the roster structure, contracts, tried to see where we might be able to improve based on a trade that we could pull off with our assets, who's a guy that they might be willing to send and that we may have something to give them that they actually might want versus us just trying to throw them our scraps and bring back a superstar, which is not how any of this works. So it was an interesting thing to kind of look at and trying to get into the head of Donnie Nelson in the front office. So I had a lot of fun with it. So we'll get into that as we go. I'm going to try to keep this episode somewhat short. First thing first, the NBA Finals. Lakers are up 3-1. I'm recording this on Thursday. It's dropping on Friday. And I think pretty much all of us expect that the Lakers are going to close it out. The Heat did keep it pretty close in the last game. At the end of the fourth quarter, I felt like the Lakers were actually tired. Where they were just launching threes, and of course AD hit one. KCP was the only one that looked like he had some energy, and he kind of stepped up, made some big plays to really help them close it out. The Heat could win another game. I just don't know if they have enough firepower to win 3 in a row. Love Jimmy Butler, love his confidence, but this one looks like it is probably going to be closed out pretty quickly this weekend. So it is the off season soon. Worst case scenario, it'll be the off season in a few days. So I'm trying to gear up for it. I'm trying to get ready for it. Next thing, the last sports episode I did were conversations with my boy Mike and Justin, at Truthfully Mike and at Truthfully _ Mike and at Young Estilos, Young with no O. Both big time fans of their teams that are in the finals. The Heat and the Lakers had some great conversations. If you have not checked those out, Mike gives a lot of props to Dirk for those 2 finals matchups against the Heat. Acknowledges the BS of Coughgate with LeBron and Wade making fun of Dirk. Just a really down-to-earth Heat fan, and it's an interesting perspective to trying to get y'all to get off of Heat fans back at this point. D-Wade is gone. We don't have any reason to hate them anymore. And then Justin, of course, talking about his Laker fandom, the bad years where they haven't been in the playoffs, haven't been chasing rings, or haven't been in the hunt for rings, I should say, since 2010 when we ended their run. So again, interesting perspective. We talked about Kobe a bit and his legacy, what it could mean. We talked about LeBron coming over there. And going back to Mike's conversation, you'll probably be interested to see how he felt about LeBron coming to Miami and what his legacy kind of means in Miami as well. So, again, if you missed those conversations, definitely go back and check them out. Coming up, I have the GOAT rankings, and I've kind of been watching other people, how they've done their GOAT rankings and trying to put my criteria together. So my goal is for next week to be the first episode of the GOAT ranking rundown, where I give you my criteria, how I decided to rank them, and then I'll try to also include my 50 through 41 in that episode. So I already have kind of the list of guys that I'm looking at. Again, my criteria to kind of try to whittle it down was guys that I believe had 6 all NBA appearances. My reason for using that as the barometer is that kind of shows a sustained period of time where you were one of the top 10, 15 players in the league. So if you only did that 1 or 2 years, I'm probably not going to put you in my GOAT rankings. I can't do it. And then I also included anyone that won an MVP that maybe didn't do the 5 or 6 years, because, I mean, at some point you were the best guy or considered the best guy or most valuable guy in the league. So I got to give you props there. And then I think I made another exception for Isaiah Thomas, who had multiple rings as the leader of a franchise. So, again, I'm not sure how that's going to shake out at all. I, again, have not finalized the criteria. I'm trying to do it as unbiased as possible. So, again, I'm very excited about that. And we'll see how it shakes out. Definitely wanted to wait until this finals was over, because I want to include all this year's awards and accolades and things like that in it as well. The last time I did something like this, it was in the middle of the playoffs. And I think that was when I did the LeBron versus Jordan rankings. And I did like their opponents and their teammates to kind of compare who had worse teammates or better teammates, who had tougher matchups. Did that back in 2017. So, of course, LeBron's had a couple of finals since then, including this year. Probably need to update that list. But a lot of fun. I like doing this type of stuff. I like digging into the history, and gives me a chance to kind of put some of the younger generation on game as far as what was happening before you cared about basketball, if you haven't done the time or taken the time to go back and look. And even for myself, I'll probably learn some things in this process. So definitely, again, very excited about it. And then the final update that I got to give, I reached out to my boy, King Carlo, who does all my music production for anything I'm doing. And he sent me some beats over. So within the next week or so, I'm probably going to have some different music playing. I'm thinking I might have different music for movie episodes versus sports episodes. Somebody even gave me the idea of using certain beats for like if the Mavs lose versus if the Mavs win. I might do outro music. So a lot of things I'm looking at there. And he sent me some heat, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to be making some selections likely over the weekend. Life is hectic, but we keep on moving. So quick break here, and then we'll start getting into these trades y'all sent me. Okay, folks, welcome back. Once again, Mike Bivens here, solo pod. Glad to be back at it. I love the interviews, but flying solo is so much easier. And I just want to jump straight into these trades people sent me. So, of course, like I said, I tried to get people to be serious about this. I wanted real trades to go over. But some people didn't understand that call, and of course, our boy James D. Grambo sent me the most ridiculous trades he could come up with. Let's just jump straight into the first one. In this first trade, Mr. Grambo has us sending Delon Wright to the Celtics and Dwight Powell to the Bucks. And in return, we receive Giannis Antetokounmpo, Marcus Smart, and Jason Tatum. That's not even flying on 2K, no matter what you have the sliders on. So then he adjusted it and made it even more ridiculous, of course, and included the Nuggets. And in this scenario, we send DeLon to the Celtics. We send Dwight Powell to the Bucks. Courtney Lee somehow is traded along with Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber to the Nuggets, and in return, holy crap, Almost died on the pod. That would have been wild. Get some water in here. Jesus. I'm not even going to edit that out. So in return, we get Giannis, Marcus Smart, and Jason Tatum again. But also now we get Nikola Jokic, which again is not happening even on 2K. So thank you, James, for your contributions. You added nothing to this. He then had a series of DeLon Wright trades for Bradley Beal, for Bam, Tyler Hero, and Duncan Robinson, for Oladipo and Turner, and then for Chris Paul. I don't even know how those went through, but whatever. So finally, we got to some serious people. And when we got to the serious people, we got some real trades to look at. The first team that people were looking to try to get us to trade with was the New Orleans Pelicans. Most of the trades included Drew, but not all. We had some Drew and JJ Redick, which was interesting. So the first comes from Mr. Roosevelt _ he has us getting JJ Redick and Drew Holiday for Tim Hardaway Jr., Seth, DeLon Wright, Justin Jackson, and the 18th pick. So a lot of people aren't going to like that the 18th pick is included. I actually think that might be necessary to get them to come up off of Drew. We got to incentivize them in some way. Why would they do that trade? In my head, JJ Redick and Drew are both old. They have a lot of young guys. They have Didi Louzada, who they stashed last year, who's probably coming in. Lonzo's there. Like, they have a lot of young guards. Josh Hart's there. They kind of need to make room. So, depending on their goals, depending on how they see the West, they could definitely be willing to come up off of Drew and JJ Redick. And Tim Hardaway Jr. as an expiring, Seth as a youngish type guy who can also shoot, kind of fill in that JJ Redick role. DeLon Wright as some depth at a point guard, who's also defensive minded, a guy they might want to have around. Again, just kind of filling some of those holes that they're giving up, but with a guy who's not making $26 million. Justin Jackson, again, is an expiring, and then pick 18 is just the icing on the cake to kind of make it work. So do I think it's a perfect trade? Maybe not. I think Seth having a long-term deal plus that 18 pick kind of makes it sexier for New Orleans to think about biting. So not mad at that trade at all. Gives us more shooting, maybe some consistency that we don't get with Seth and THJ currently with the shooting. And then Drew is, in my opinion, the perfect complement for Luka as a guy who can defend 1 through 3 easily, a guy who can facilitate, and a guy who is like a slashing scorer, who could also hit some jump shots. So a guy who's a former All-Star and probably should have been an All-Star more times, but, you know, offense rules everything around me. Never mind. I was trying to see if that made a nice little acronym, but it doesn't. So the next trade, he said, was just JJ Redick for DeLon Wright and pick 31. So again, that's saying maybe they're married to Drew. Maybe they don't want to trade him. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. So then they package the old man, JJ Redick, gives us another shooter. DeLon Wright, not sure he would be what they would want, but he makes the money work, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we probably would have to go another way there. I don't think they need a point guard so much. So we might have to get creative just to get JJ. And I'm not sure how much that really moves the needle, getting an old shooter when there are young guys to be had out there on the market. So probably don't pursue that. The next scenario is very similar to the earlier one. This comes from Jay Montelli. THJ, DeLon Wright, Brunson, and pick 18 for JJ Redick and Drew. And the only difference here is we're doing Brunson now instead of Seth, really. And his defense of that trade was, assuming that THJ opts in, the Pelicans get a shooter and scorer with THJ and a decent backup guard in DeLon Wright, a potential starter in Brunson if they end up letting Lonzo walk later, which is a nice wrinkle to it. They also get a first round pick to add another young asset. Mavs, in the meantime, get an elite defender in Drew Holiday, who can also create for himself, and an elite shooter in JJ Redick. He even added that he's not sure what the market is going to be for Drew with his contract and injury history. So again, we gotta make it make sense for the other side, and I think he does have a pretty good defense there, with Brunson potentially being the point guard of the future type to fill in if they don't really believe in Lonzo down there. So an interesting wrinkle. So now this second team we're looking at is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And this one kind of came out of left field for me. I hadn't really thought about it, but when he brings it up here, I kind of say, could that be a thing? So Jarrett Culver is the target here. And then this one, again, comes from Mr. Roosevelt _ Jarrett Culver to Dallas for Justin Jackson, Jalen Brunson, and a 31st pick. Now, I don't know if we'd be able to swing it with pick 31. It's probably going to take 18 because Culver was a very high draft pick. With that said, how do they feel about Culver in Minnesota? Do they feel he fits with D'Angelo Russell? Do they maybe want to go a different way? Do they see Brunson as a guy who could be a legit, real backup or even starter at the point to play alongside D'Angelo at some point? Justin Jackson, again, is just a throw-in and make the money work. And then the pick, again, if we do 18, we kind of are incentivizing them. Go ahead and let go of your guy that you drafted high last year. Here's our guy who outperformed his draft pick. Plus, here's a mid-first rounder for you to go add another young asset. So that would be something to be interested in. I'd be interested to look at. I'm not sure how Minnesota feels about Culver and where they're at as a team right now. Brunson, I think, is a very solid point guard. You know what you're getting with him. And steady with the upside and the pedigree. So that one is new. I don't think I've seen anybody looking at the Wolves, and that one got my juices flowing, if you will. The next one again comes from Mr. Roosevelt. He submitted the most. I had to whittle it down. I tried to come down to like 10 scenarios. So next one is the Utah Jazz, and in this scenario, he has us going after Ed Davis. Ed Davis is on the Jazz. I think he ended up getting hurt at some point last year, but they weren't really using him anyway. I think he has 1 year, $5 million left on his deal, and so basically we send them Justin Jackson. That's just a salary swap, and he has us giving them a future second. So basically, in this scenario, Ed Davis is just holding down a roster spot over there, not really contributing much. Send him to us. What do we get? We get a guy who's a glass cleaner and a bruiser inside, which complements KP. We don't have to play him 30 minutes a game to make it worth his little $5 million contract. He basically just gives us a more athletic option besides Boban to put beside KP or Maxey if we want to make sure we have some interior presence. So I would definitely be interested in Ed Davis coming in. Justin Jackson in a second may not get it done, but I would something light like that. And by the way, this is not 31. This is like a future second. I think he put 2026, which might be the first year we could trade at this point. His next trade, and this is where things start to get a little for me as far as the incentive of the other teams. So the next one, and there were a few people that went after this team, is the Nets. Mr. Roosevelt _ said, Mavs get Dinwiddie. We give up DeLon Wright, Jalen Brunson, and pick 18. So again, Dinwiddie is an interesting guy. I think that for me, the reason I looked at the Nets as a team that might be looking to make some trades is because with Kyrie and Durant next year, they are way overloaded with guards. with LeVert and Dinwiddie basically being starter level talents who are going to have their minutes dramatically cut into by just the star-studded talent in front of them. Do they want to stay there and be depth for that team? Perhaps. Or do they want to go somewhere where they can get big minutes? Perhaps. So I'm not sure. I would have liked to see his defense of this trade. Didn't get one from him. If I could speculate, I would say that he's probably saying DeLon Wright can kind of fill in more as a guy who's a natural reserve and a complementary type of player who plays defense and hustles. Jalen Brunson, again, a reserve guard who can give you some points off the bench. And then pick 18. Maybe they have their eyes on a wing or a big that they can add depth with if they want to make some other moves. So I don't know. That's something to look at. He also tried to do Tim Hardaway Jr., DeLon, Jalen, and pick 31 for Dinwiddie and Joe Harris as a sign and trade. I can't see Harris doing a sign and trade. I don't know why he would be incentivized to do that when he could just sign a deal on the open market, most likely, for whatever money he's going to get. He's not going to get a huge deal, I wouldn't imagine. So, again, another trade. I'm not sure how I feel about it, the incentive of the other side. Next one comes from MFFL Hunter. I don't know how many F's I just said. Whatever. MFFL Hunter / Luca's lawyer. His trade was ridiculously big, and I'm going to read his defense because it is long. It's the Wizards, Nets, and Mavs three-way explosion here. So Ish Smith and Bradley Beal go to the Nets, which nobody wants to see. Kyrie, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant coming at them next year. Oh, my God. Garrett Temple, Dinwiddie, and Kurucs come to Dallas. THJ LeVert to Washington. And the Mavs also give up pick 18 and 31 to get Dinwiddie in this scenario, which is probably more realistic. Justification for this trade: Mavs upgrade from THJ to Dinwiddie. He said, granted, Dinwiddie on paper is a worse shooter and defender, but he's an upgrade, okay? But Dinwiddie's catch and shoot numbers when another facilitator was on the floor are pretty good, over 40% from three. And Dinwiddie has the size to be a decent defender, 1 through 3. I'm not personally familiar with his defense, so I can't say anything there. Hopefully splitting the load for Luka and Dinwiddie and running the offense gets them more locked in defensively. Dinwiddie also has a smaller contract that he can opt out of in 2021. So not only do you not mess with 2021 cap space, but you could make space more easily for 2020 free agency if you want it. The other players are cap filler. Kurucs has some potential, but he also has some domestic violence allegations against him, so I'm not a fan of him. But that's another conversation. So again, big time trade. He gets the Nets involved with the Wizards here to kind of make the deal work on the outskirts, because again, you have to give a reason that the Nets would be involved. And I would say that they would be a little bit incentivized to get Bradley Beal, and then the Wizards get a guy like LeVert instead of a guy who may be disgruntled in Bradley Beal. So again, you make it work. THJ also goes to the Wizards, and they get some pretty high draft picks. So I like the structure of that trade. A lot of thought went into that, you could tell, and I'm not mad at it. Personally, I think every team kind of gets something out of this, and that's the goal with these trade scenarios. Now, the second one he did was just straight up to the Wizards, and in this scenario, the Mavs trade Tim Hardaway Jr., Seth, Maxey, Jalen Brunson, picks 18 and 31, and the 2025 first round pick. Again, that's THJ, Seth Curry, Maxi Kleber, Jalen Brunson, pick 18, pick 31, and a 2025 first round pick. In return, we get Ish Smith, Bradley Beal, and Mo Wagner. So again, is Bradley Beal upset Do they would need to come up off of them? We'll see one way or another. And the question is, how can we make it work for them? So in this scenario, they get 2 shooting guard replacements for Beal. They get Maxey, who kind of adds some big man versatility. Jalen Brunson, who's a point guard that they might like, who's young. They get their team younger there. And then they get 2 pretty much first-round picks, or 3 first-round picks. So this one he said it's just a normal trade for Beal. Don't think it beats other teams' packages like the Nets, the Raptors, or the Nuggets. But basically just this is our best foot forward if we're going to make a run at them. I'm not mad at it, brother. The second option gets pretty ridiculous, but I'm gonna read it. So again, this is just us and the Wizards. In this scenario, we trade Hardaway, Dwight Powell, DeLon Wright, Justin Jackson for John Wall and Bradley Beal. Yeah, right. So in this scenario, he says they get off of Wall's contract that is thought to be unmovable. The trade is like the KP trade turned up a notch. Wizards just want a new rebuild and are willing to sacrifice getting picks in order to get out from under Wall's contract. In the process, they get some decent role players that are signed long-term. Said he might throw in a first-round pick for the Mavs, but that to me is a heavy price to pay, essentially take on Beal at the cost of $60 million a year for the next 3 years. Mavs and in this scenario, as far as the Mavs, why they would do this deal and lock up all that money, Mavs realize they can't add anyone in free agency in 21 and say, screw it. Beal is the only star that can be had via trade. Mavs won't be able to sign many role players going forward, but with Curry, Maxey, and DFS still on the team, plus Brunson and some picks, the Mavs could still field a roster. Might also attract ring-hungry vets to take veteran minimum deals. Sacrifices a chance at making any other moves, but to get a bona fide star that actually complements Luka and KP may be worth it. And hey, maybe the Mavs training staff can work a miracle on Wall. So again, jumbo trade. This all comes from MFFL Hunter, Luka's lawyer on Twitter, and the imagination is there. I'll say that. I can't see getting Wall and Beal. I don't know if I want Wall and Beal. I would love Beal. I do expect that a lot of teams are getting their bids in. I just don't know if our bid is strong enough. And just saying we'll take on Wall may not be enough in that scenario. But I like the thought. All right, we're back to Mr. Roosevelt _. And he is trying to make a deal with the Orlando Magic for Aaron Gordon. I know some people have suggested this. I believe Kenny is one of those people that we make a run at Aaron Gordon. I may or may not enjoy Aaron Gordon's particular style of play. That's not my place to decide, though. So in this case, Mr. Roosevelt has us sending DeLon Wright, Justin Jackson, Jalen Brunson, and pick 31 to Orlando for Aaron Gordon in his 2 years. I believe $18 or so million. Again, I don't think Aaron Gordon's that sexy. I'm not sure. I guess he kind of fits with KP. If we can get him to rebound, that would be great. He's athletic, which we need. I don't know. It just depends on how you feel about Aaron Gordon. I don't like giving up the 31st pick in this scenario. Jalen Brunson and DeLon Wright or whatever in this scenario gives them more guards behind Markelle Fultz. So, and they get up off of Aaron Gordon's contract, which they may be incentivized to do, even though all their other fours are injured in Aminu and Jonathan Isaac. So, next trade comes from Ryan Mikhail. He is very ambitious. In his trade, he has us dealing with the Nuggets. And we trade Seth Curry, DeLon Wright, or Tim Hardaway Jr. for Gary Harris and or Jeremy Grant. We also include Justin Jackson in the 18th pick. So Jeremy Grant is a free agent, but may be interested in doing a sign and trade. I'm going to assume that's what he's trying to do here. And then Gary Harris, I'm kind of not sure where he fits in with the Nuggets. Is he on the trading block? If so, would they be interested in a Seth DeLon or Tim Hardaway Jr. package with a pick 18, which they probably would turn into a super stud, probably get Killian Tilly or something like that. Maybe. I don't know how they feel about Gary Harris. I do feel like he's a guy that you have to make a call on, and I would be interested in seeing the results of that call. Would I be willing to give up Seth DeLon for that? Yep, I would. Pick 18, I might bite that bullet too for a proven commodity. So in this scenario, I can't tell by his wording if he's saying we get Harris and Grant. The only way that works is if Grant has said that he wants to come to Dallas already. Otherwise, it's kind of a lopsided trade. But if it's Harris and Grant has said he wants to come to Dallas and we're just kind of doing it as a sign and trade to play with the money a little bit, then so be it. I'm all in on that. That would be a perfect scenario. We get a complimentary guard for Luka, as well as a guy who could play some of that 3-4 defensive stud hustle guy in Jeremy Grant. So beautiful. If we can make it work. And again, that starts with Jeremy Grant saying he wants to come to Dallas, and then the Nuggets wanting to get rid of Gary Harris. Then we're getting to the last couple of trades here from other guys. So this one comes from Marcos Levy. He said DeLon Wright and pick 18 for Josh Richardson. Whew. That feels like a hefty price. I'm not sure I'm willing to come up off of pick 18 for Josh Richardson. His justification for it was improving our defense, but again, I don't know if I would do 18, maybe 31. I probably wouldn't do that either, honestly. I don't know. Josh Richardson isn't that sexy to me. How big of an upgrade is he over Tim Hardaway? I don't know. And in this scenario, we probably still have Tim Hardaway, so even worse. All right. If we're just getting rid of DeLon Wright for Josh Richardson and maybe could add a future second or something, maybe I can get on board with that. I also think the 76ers have bigger issues. They got to get up off of one of those gigantic contracts. They're probably not thinking about Josh Richardson's contract at all. And then finally, we get to the Kings trade. This comes from Dak Wagon, who I did get to send a defense, and somehow he was the only one that went after Buddy Hield. I'm not sure how that happened when Buddy Hield, I think, came out top 2 in the poll. Nobody made a legit run at Oladipo either, surprisingly. But for the Buddy Hield trade, he said Tim Hardaway Jr. and the 31st pick. So in this way, he said, the way I see it, Buddy Hield has legitimate superstar stuff. THJ always struck me as a role player. Mavericks need someone they can rely on to be a scorer when shots aren't falling for the main two. Not that THJ can't get hot. I think the playoffs showed us how bad his streakiness can hurt us, though. And then his defense of why the Kings would make this trade. They get a tough-minded role player to pair in the backcourt with a foot on the gas point guard. Assuming Hardaway Jr. opts in, they're not committed long-term. Whatever is going on with Buddy and Luke isn't there anymore, and it's going to be a somewhat solid talent at pick 31. So, with that said, I think that we probably have to make that trade a little bit sexier. We probably have to come up off of 18 because Buddy Hield is locked in for 4 years. They wouldn't just trade Buddy Hield for the 31st pick in this scenario, basically, in a year of Tim Hardaway Jr. They probably are going to want a little something extra, so we probably would have to come up off of 18. May have to come up off of 18 and 31. But that's it for the trades that were submitted. You guys definitely got my wheels turning on some of these, so I appreciate it. But with that said, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to go through what I did as far as my rundown on looking at every single roster, every single player, and then like where my mind went as far as what we might be able to send to somebody, what we might be able to get back that would make sense for both teams. And I'll be back. All right, welcome back yet again to the Bibbs Corner podcast. And for this final segment, I did my own digging. I did my own searching, looking for what trades might make sense for Dallas. And first of all, I had to find out what we might be willing to trade. What are our assets? So the obvious, DeLon Wright, 2 years, $9 million a year. Tim Hardaway Jr., if he opts in, 1 year, $19 million. Could be how we get a guy who has a bigger contract. Justin Jackson, 1 year, $5 million, throwaway. Jalen Brunson, 2 years, only $1.5 million, but he can spice up a trade if a team wants a young point guard. Then, of course, our picks this year, 18 and 31, and any long, distant future first-round picks, depending on the trade. So those are the obvious things we can afford to lose, if you will. There are other guys we might be willing to trade in the right scenario, but that's where we want to start. Those are our on the table, showing our cards type of guys, type of picks. Do we care about 18 and 31? Probably not. They probably want to vet. They draft for guys that they think that contribute right away anyway. So they're definitely dangling those picks. Then what do we need going into next year? If we think we're going to be competing for a title, we need a secondary playmaker / defender, if possible, to pair with Luka in the backcourt. We need a wing defender, scorer, 3-and-D slasher type player to so it's not just Dorian Finney-Smith, and it's not Maxey trying to do that. I mean, would I love to see Maxey develop some more off the bounce type stuff in his game? Yes, but as of today, he's not prepared to do that. So can we get a guy like that on the roster? And then finally, as far as players go, we want an athletic bruiser / rebounding big man, enforcer inside, somebody who can take a pounding and not have to play 30 minutes. A guy we can throw in there for 10, 15 minutes at a time to do some dirty work and keep KP fresh. And maybe run some pick and rolls, by the way. Run some pick and rolls. Dwight Powell is not blocking anything. We want somebody who can actually deter somebody at the rim. And then the final thing we want to try to accomplish with any trade that we pull off is the flexibility to have money for the 2021 free agency extravaganza, bonanza, feast, whatever, frenzy, all that. We want to make sure we have money flexibility. So I went team by team, literally every single roster in the league. If I could find a guy that maybe we could get, I listed that trade, and then if it wasn't even worth talking about, I just completely got rid of it. If it was worth maybe mentioning to kind of maybe get your ears perked up, then I left it in. All right. So first, Atlanta. The only guy on the roster that made sense for us to pursue and who Atlanta might be willing to trade was Dwayne Dedmon. He falls into that third camp as a bruising, rebounding big. He can also hit threes. So for you floor spacing fans out there, 2 years, $13 million on his deal may be the only deterrent. Because if we're going to pursue somebody in free agency, we might end up having to trade that contract to make a little bit more cash room. Does that complicate things? Maybe. Then what do we trade for Dedmon? Maybe DeLon Wright is enough as a strong backup point guard behind Trae Young, who's a complimentary guard as well, who plays defense. Could that be enough? Will they want Jalen Brunson? Will they throw us a pick? Who knows? But Dedmon is a guy to look at. The next trade is a biggie. So, and this one, I don't know. You might like it, you might not, but it's one that I think could be could work for a lot of teams. So I made this into a 3-team deal because a straight up deal didn't make sense. So first of all, in this scenario, we're assuming that, well, let me tell you the first team involved, Boston. Gordon Hayward opts into his gigantic $34 million last year of his contract, as would anybody with 4 children. And the Celtics decide that he is a bit of a redundancy. And they have an opportunity to bring in a veteran big man to help hunker down the paint so Daniel Tice isn't playing 30 minutes in the playoffs next year as a rental. So in this scenario, 3-team deal, Dallas, Boston, Oklahoma City. Gordon Hayward comes to Dallas to play that complimentary wing guy. He's done a lot of facilitating in his time. He can hit some shots. He slashes. Steven Adams goes to Boston, who would fit right in perfectly. Team-oriented guy, comes from playing for a former college coach, goes to another former college coach, can run in that system, set screens, rebound, be a bruiser inside. He's also just got 1 year left on his contract at $27 million, so the money kind of works already. Why wouldn't they just do that trade straight up? Well, the Thunder in this scenario are in super rebuild mode. We're assuming they're going to also trade Chris Paul, so they're trying to compile assets and young talent. What do we give up in this scenario? We give up Tim Hardaway Jr. because he has the biggest contract. We got to get up off of that. We can give up DeLon Wright to OKC. Again, they're assuming they're trading Chris Paul. Maybe they're going to need some guard depth. So that kind of gets us to the money already. Maybe they want Jalen Brunson as well. That his contract is nothing. You throw that in. That's another young talent. Maybe they want picks. 18-31 on the table. In this scenario, again, we get rid of young assets, things that don't really hurt us. Tim Hardaway Jr., love him or leave him. Gordon Hayward brings a little bit more to the table if he can stay healthy. So you got to watch that. And then again, he comes off the books, so we remain flexible for 2021. If we like what he did for us and we can't bring anybody in, we can bring him back. He's not an old guy yet. And I don't know. I think that's a trade we have to look at. I saw somebody posted an article about pursuing Gordon Hayward earlier. I didn't look at it, but Gordon Hayward is a commodity that people are talking about. Moving on, Indiana, Oladipo, 1 year, $21 million. Miles Turner, 3 years, $18 million. The reason I don't know if we would actually pursue Miles Turner is because he kind of is very similar to KP, and maybe some people might think that's a reason to pursue him, but others might say, do you really want to lock up 30-something mil in KP and then 18 mil in Miles Turner for the next 3 years? That's 50-some mil to two guys who don't really complement each other well. And I don't know, that's a lot of, and then you have Dwight Powell's contract there too, who's also going to be fighting for those big man minutes. It's just kind of a lot of money to tie up in there, and Miles probably thinks he's going to be a guy that's playing big minutes, so kind of makes your roster kind of weird. And they're both two guys that want to sit on the perimeter for the most part, so in the playoffs, is that really how you want to complement KP? Probably not. So then Oladipo, I know a lot of people are high on him, a lot of people are low on him, but I think that's somewhere you have to look. If we can get in on that sweepstakes, I would be all for it as a rental. Again, 1 year, $21 million. THJ, throw in some picks to make it sexy. Whatever we got to do there, I'm all in on that. Personally, you got to try some things. And again, it's 1 year. We remain flexible for free agency the following year. Moving on, Orlando is the next team on my list. And in this scenario, they actually have 5 players I looked at as potential targets. Gordon Hayward, again, 2 years, $18 million. Money might be an issue there. Evan Fournier, if he opts in, 1 year, $17 million. And as far as him, do you think he's an upgrade to THJ? Do you not? I don't know if it moves the needle enough for a straight-up trade for THJ, unless you just want to try it out, to try something different. Terrence Ross, 3 years, kind of $12 million. I think it's 13, 12, 11. I think it goes down. Does he really add anything to the table? Is he going to conflict with DFS, THJ, or Seth. How do we get him? His contract isn't quite meeting THJ's contract, so we would have to get something else from them. Aminu, 2 years, 10 mil. What about his health? Mo Bamba, 2 years, 6 mil. What about his health? Are they willing to trade him? There's just a lot of things that I don't know if we would get involved with the Magic on any of those guys. Gordon Hayward is probably the most likely, Aaron Gordon, besides his contract locking us into an extra 18 mil when we're trying to get involved in that 2021 free agency extravaganza. So, Orlando, probably not a likely trade partner if I had to say. Moving on, a new one that kind of popped up on the radar, and it was a joke at first, but I think has gotten more seriously. Paul George. I'm going to take a sip, let that marinate for a second. I know how everybody feels about Paul George, playoff P, whatever you want to call him. But you can't deny that he is a all-star, all-NBA level talent. A guy who I believe finished top 3 or 5. I'm not gonna guess, but I know he was in the MVP hunt his last year in Oklahoma City. If they make that call, do you take that call? And then what do we give up in place of that? Obviously Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be included. DeLon Wright could be an actual point guard, kind of Patrick Beverly without the rabies. Do we include Jalen Brunson in that? What do they want in that scenario is going to be the question. Would they try to get Dwight Powell off of us to replace Montrezl Harrell? All those things are possible. Now, going back, I know I dissed the Jason Richardson idea earlier, but going to Philly, Jason Richardson, Mike Scott. So Mike Scott is a goon type, can hit some threes, hustles. Could we get Jay Rich and Mike Scott as kind of some gunners for Tim Hardaway Jr.? Would that be worth it? I don't know. I don't think so. Chicago is one that was interesting. Obviously, Otto Porter is the big prize. I don't know how they feel about Otto Porter. Could we get Otto Porter for a THJ, DeLon Wright type trade? Are they incentivized to make that deal? Do we have to maybe throw in pick 31 or something? Maybe. Otto Porter would be a great wing guy if we can keep him healthy and he can shoot. I'm saying he can shoot. If we can keep him healthy, he can shoot. He's long. Could be an interesting pickup. And again, 1 year comes off the books after that. So beautiful. The more realistic target, however, Thaddeus Young kind of plays that Draymond type role. 2 years, 13 mil on his deal, but the second year is not guaranteed. And then Tomas Satoransky, 2 years, 10 mil. Again, second year not guaranteed. Could we get in on a Thaddeus Young, Tomas Satoransky package? Satoransky becomes a backup point guard / secondary ball handler with Luka. He can shoot. He actually defends pretty well. I like Satoransky personally. I wanted him last year in free agency. I don't think he worked well in Chicago. I know they're making some changes, but could we get in on that Satoransky thing? Could we trade DeLon up there for a more defensive-minded guard for them, a hustle guy? Maybe they didn't like Satoransky's fit up there. THJ could give them more offense, perhaps. Behind Zach LaVine, another gunner off the bench. I don't know. How would we get Thaddeus and Tomas? That becomes a question. But Thaddeus, I think, would be a sneaky pickup to play beside KP in that Draymond type of role. If you want to keep KP at the 5. Let's see. So then we go to Phoenix. And Phoenix has a guy by the name of Kelly Oubre, who may be in the way of McCall Bridges and Campaign, who both kind of caught fire in the bubble in Oubre's absence. So do they want to make room for those guys? Oubre only has 1 year left, 14 mil. What would they want from us? Would they want Jalen Brunson as a complimentary backup? Would they want Delon Wright as a more veteran backup? Would they take Justin Jackson as a throw-in to make the money work? I would have to look at it. Would you give up pick 18 to go with Delon and Jackson to get Oubre if it's a salary dump? We've seen them dump players with actual talent for less. So I'm in on that. I like Oubre's game. I like his gooniness. And then we'd also have the sexiest team in the NBA with Oubre and Maxey in there making the women swoon. So I'm sorry, I had to get that joke in. Anyway, moving on. Charlotte, Cody Zeller, 1 year, 15 mil. Will they take THJ to get more scoring? Will they take Delon as another like defensive-minded guard? Will they take Justin Jackson as a North Carolina guy to add some of that depth? I don't know. I don't know if maybe Zeller's a Hornet for life. They had a lot of roster flexibility is one thing that I just noticed. A lot of their guys are coming off the books. Batum's probably going to opt in. But Charlotte's not a sexy free agency destination, so they will probably end up overpaying some guys to come in and fill in their roster. We'll see how that goes. But that might be a reason why they might take on THJ. And again, he will come right off the books anyway. I'm about to say a name that a lot of people have been upset about hearing lately, but I'm going to say it anyway. Andre Drummond. 1 year left on his deal, 28 mil if he opts in. Do we take a run at it? Do we give it a shot? See how he looks beside KP? I, for one, would do it. What do we have to lose? I'm not saying that's the first thing we do. We do look at some of the other options, but just see what it looks like. Could we sell him on taking a lot less in free agency the following year if we don't think we're going to get anybody else? I personally think it would be interesting to see him with an actual guard that passes the ball, because he's never played with a real guard. Especially, he's still in his prime years. As a big man, it's hard to look like you're a good player when you're on a bad team. He can't. I've seen him have to try to take guys off the bounce to set up for himself. He shouldn't have to be setting up his own plays. He, in our offense, would have the freedom of movement throughout the paint because Luka and the shooters are spreading the floor. Like, the paint is his just domain to do whatever the hell he wants. He can set screens. You talk about, he messes up the floor spacing. Look how we play with Boban in. His gravity, his screen setting, his ability to clean the glass, because once Luka comes off that pick and roll and starts diving, nobody's going to give a damn about the big man. Nobody's watching Andre Drummond. So everybody goes after Luka. Luka misses the layup, and Drummond's there for the putback. Or they collapse on Luka, and Luka dimes it to him. He's more athletic than Boban, quicker. Boban just uses his height to be over top of people. But I just think it would be sexier than y'all think it would be. What does he bring on defense, defensive intensity? Again, you're playing on bad teams. Your intensity is probably not going to be the highest after a certain point in time. So I don't know what he looks like on defense on a team that he actually cares about trying on. I would be willing to see it out. That's my rant on Andre Drummond. Again, we go back to Sacramento and Buddy Hield. Can we do it for THJ, Delon, and a pick? That becomes the question. Other teams probably have better packages they can put together for Buddy, including a team like the Nets, for example, or even the Wizards if they want to be weird about Bradley Beal. San Antonio. I looked at their roster, and they have 3 old guys and then just a bunch of young talent with no real contracts. DeRozan's Got a $27 million option, 1 year. Aldridge 1 year, $24 million, and Rudy Gay 1 year, $14 million. All of those guys could kind of give us a little bit of what we might actually want. The question is, what can we actually give San Antonio that they don't have? The only answer really would be those picks. And then obviously we'd have to make the money work otherwise. So I don't know if it's worth it to get one of those guys on a rental just because they are old veterans, unless, again, we think we're going for the rings right now. I could definitely see us benefiting from LaMarcus Aldridge, and I could see us benefiting from DeRozan. Not sure what Rudy Gay has left in the tank. Next one. And I've been trying to run through these. I apologize. This podcast is running longer than I wanted it to. I think I'm still under an hour, though. Kyle Lowry, is he Toronto? If not, can we get him? He's 34, so again, this is a let's go for it now type scenario. THJ Dillon, that's the money right there. And we'll probably have to come up off some picks. Or a pick. But he only has 1 year, again, 30 mil. Blake Griffin in Detroit. Again, is he the bruising guy that we put beside KP with a little bit of athleticism left? He has 36 mil for 2 years. That becomes the problem there. Is if we're trying to make a run at a free agency in 2021, he would kind of mess that money up. We would have to figure out how to dump his salary, which would probably be very difficult at that point. But we'll see. You have to look at it. Blake Griffin's on the table. New Orleans, we already kind of touched on. Drew Holiday, his 2 years, 26 mil. I say 18, THJ and Delon, give it a shot. Not sure. JJ Redick, 1 year, 13 mil. I don't know if it makes sense to go after just JJ, but if we can get him in a package, I'd be all over it. We talked about Ed Davis in Utah already. Can we get him as a salary dump? And then finally, you knew it was going to come, and I'm here with it. Frank Ntilikina for the Knicks is on his last year of his rookie deal, $6 million. Y'all know how I feel about Frank. I feel like he's the type of guy who is not going to look great on a bad team because he's having to do more than he should have to do. He should not be having to create scoring for himself. He wants to set up other guys, but he doesn't have other guys who like to be set up. He has guys that like to dribble the basketball. The best run I ever saw from him was when he had a healthy KP. Him and KP had a beautiful pick and roll game together, playing off of each other. Frank makes a lot of those little subtle passes that when you have talented guys around you, like Luka does it too, like those passes where you don't even know if the guy who's catching the ball was ready for it, but you have to be ready for it when you're on the court with one of those type of guys. Like I've seen Frank make those passes. His weaknesses are finishing, driving to the hole, being aggressive doing so. Again, probably helps to have some spacing, which we would be able to provide. He is a legitimate clamp god on the perimeter, and we need that. I likened him to Drew Holiday coming out, and I really think he can be that type of defender. I really think he's really like that, if you will. And so how much weight does New York have now? They've been very picky about what they're willing to trade him for, but now he's in the last year of that contract. Yes, he's a fan favorite, but fan favorites get traded all the time. So can we get him for a Brunson in 31, perhaps? Do we have to come up off of 18? It would be hard to come up off of 18 considering the fact that, again, he's in his last year. I think that's how we push back and say, nope, it's got to be 31. We can only guarantee we're going to have him for a year. So that's where I'm at with that. Bobby Portis and Taj Gibson are also on team options. So maybe they want to do a package where they get rid of one of those guys too in our deal, and we can get a goon big man. And maybe they want DeLon Wright to add some veteran point guard depth. Maybe they want maybe they want THJ back to add some scoring. I don't know, but those are the three guys that I'm looking at if I'm looking at the Knicks. Frank obviously is my man's. If we can get him, I'm all over it. Do they see him as too much of a young project type player? Maybe. Or in Dallas, maybe. But also, when you consider the idea of having a guy who could be a perfect complement to Luka for 10 years to come, then I say I would make a run at that. But I'm biased, and I'm openly admitting to that. So that is it. I think, again, I'm pretty close to an hour on this. Didn't mean to go that long, but I did it. Thank you again for checking in. Again, the GOAT rankings begin next week as long as I can make it happen. Thank you all for your time and your dedication. I'm loving seeing that y'all are still listening to me, even though we're a ways away from Mavericks basketball behind us and we don't know when it's coming back. I'm enjoying doing this, and I will keep it coming. Keep it locked to the Bibs Quarter Podcast. Peace.